I first fell in love with Carnival as a child. I must have been about 3 years old. My mother had taken my siblings and me to see the parade pass. I remember the sun was blazing, the music thundered in my chest, and the colors danced in the air like confetti carried on the wind. I was visibly excited, eyes wide, arms waving in time with the beat. It's the one platform where I see all the arts, music, fashion, dance, design, storytelling, converge in an explosion of color and joy. From the pioneers who laid the foundation to the creatives carrying it into the future. This is more than culture. This is memory. This is movement. This is Carnival.
Well, I came involved in Lucian Carnival when I was a child. And my sister used to dress me about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Carnival Day. In those days, there was no carnival bands. It was individuals who dressed up and walked around town. And people used to stay in their windows and applaud them and so on. So I walked around town with my sisters holding hands, and that was Carnival. So when I got into, I was of course in infant school in the RC, and when I got there next day, all the children would be singing and they would be proud of the fact that they saw me dressed in Carnival. At that time, there was no vision. People just dressed up on Carnival. This was not a holiday or anything. And people dressed up after work and walked around individually, crisscrossing each other around town. That was what it was all about. And of course, people of Castries coming out to their windows and congratulating them, telling them how pretty they look and this sort of thing. But as we progressed, my sisters had a lot of friends, and so they came together and they formed a little band of about 10 people, and I was the only male in the band. And we went around town celebrating, and that was it. As we progressed and we became, Carnival became more of a big festivity. I became a member of the Turks Carnival Band. And the emphasis on Carnival in those days was on steelpan. Everybody wanted to play steelpan so they could play on Carnival Day. I was in many steelpans. I was in Falcon, which was on Brazil Street. I was in Mellowtone, which was on La Panse. And I was also playing for Turks. And I was also playing for the college steelpan. So I became an all-round pan man. I used to make pans, I used to tune pans. And the Turks were in Roddy Walcott's yard on Ocean Road. But the yard is a very small yard. And as the band grew, the yard became too small. So they migrated to my grandmother's yard in the next corner, which is called Grass Street, where we had a very large yard, where we made the pans, where we painted the pans, where we tuned the pans. And all steelpan from then on became at my grandmother's yard. And so, as anything else, there are a lot of people in the band that couldn't sew, that couldn't make uniform, that couldn't do anything. Now, my influence as a child was that I couldn't run around after school. My grandmother sent me to a tailor shop. So I learned to sew. So I began sewing and doing things for some of the members of the band and fixing their costumes and preparing them for Carnival Day. Well, the biggest problems facing Carnival back then was organizing your music. Okay? Now, your music was still band. You didn't have hi-fi on the roads, and you may have one band on a truck or so on, which is Paul Kay's brass band. But other than that, you had to organize steel band. Now, organizing steel band was pan around the neck. You carry your pan around the neck, and you have to have all the different pieces to make up the band. So these were some of the difficulties that you face in organizing, because people played on the roads, different things happened. The strap would burst, this and that would happen, or you have to stop and fix them up. And these are the difficulties that we confronted at the time. Well, I think one of the great things that happened was Miss Booty. She used to have a carnival dance at Palm Beach on the Sunday night. And then at the wee hours of the morning, on Monday morning, they would move from Palm Beach to town with a juve. And people would follow that juve, I think so. But at the coronation of the Queen, Roddy Walcott came off with a band. That was the first time he was coming out with a band. And the band was called Turks. And they played the coronation of the Queen. So from then on, the band started playing Carnival. So, but you didn't join that band because you liked it or if you pleased. You had to be selected by the band for you to be a part of that band. So I was selected in '54, and we started playing Carnival, if pan around the neck. But as the band grew, Roddy Walcott's yard became too small. You know where Roddy Walcott is, on Chaussee Road. So they migrated to my grandmother's yard at the next corner, which is called and Grass Street, because we were already using there to make pans and things. So we started doing everything there, painting pans, tuning pans, playing, practicing. All road matters started from there and so on. One of the most telling event that took place was in 1992, when John Compton, as Prime Minister, told the bands that they must all assemble at the VG playing field and then have a procession from there to Mindufili Park. Before that, the bands used to come from the mass camp and go to Mindufili Park. Now, you would understand the implication to that. The park used to be packed up with people who came to see Carnival and saw the presentation of the band and all that thing. But when he came up with that idea and bands had to parade from VG playing field to Mindufili Park became empty. Everybody lined the routes, and so they couldn't make any money anymore. So the Carnival Band Association couldn't function because they were the ones who ran Carnival before. So they couldn't function. So the government had to take it up and to start paying the prices and supporting the events and these sort of things, you see. Carnival music at the time was calypso, okay? And the calypso we played was calypso from Trinidad, okay? So Sparrow and Kitchener and Melody, and these are the songs that we played on the roads, because soca was not in style yet, and St. Lucian didn't really start singing the songs you would like to play on the road. But I went a little further than that, and I introduced Burning Flames to St. Lucia. And when Burning Flames started playing this type of music, and everybody loved the music, things started growing. And more, you got such things like hi-fi, and these things coming on the road and taking over. Like today, hi-fi has almost taken over all the music on the road. You don't get a steelpan on the road today. Okay? After the steelpan play Panorama, they're finished. And that's one of the sad things of Carnival now, that the steelpans are no longer there. Well, I believe that we have taken great strides in producing our own music. And I think our music today rates very high in the Caribbean. Okay? And because of that, there's more drive, there's more emphasis. People are more interested in creating bands to bring on the road because of this. Other than that, there are also added incentives, such as the lengthening of the route. Taking the Carnival route from Fiji Field and putting it at Shock, lengthen the route. Revelers have an opportunity now to enjoy themselves longer. But in saying so, there's also a reduction in that, whereas the Carnival was at Mindufini Park, today it's by the market. So whereas it grew on one side, there was a decrease on the other side. And but the expressions of Carnival is important. People must understand that the Carnival they play is not for themselves alone. The Carnival you play is also for the spectator who comes all the way from Labrie and Suzel and Soufre and all that to see Carnival. And so we must be conscious of what we do. For example, Carnival in the past, you had to stay in your sections. The sections move, and the people who came to see Carnival saw something beautiful. They saw the sections. Today, by the time they reach the Shock roundabout, there are no sections. Everybody jumping one into the other now. There's a mass of people coming down the road. And in fact, it's even worse on Tuesday, because Tuesday there's no costume now. So these are the things that we have to understand, that it is important that we realize the people that come to watch Carnival are as important as we who play the Mass. In today's Mass, we cannot say that we are playing Mass for the revelers, okay? Because the revelers is just a small part of it. The most important thing is to have everybody involved. And if you have people that are not seeing anything out of the Mass, but a mass of people just jumping down the road, then they stop coming. You see a reduction in the spectators, okay? So what I think is important is that we emphasize to the reveler that they must remain in their sections, so that there's beauty and that the people can enjoy that. If there's nothing to enjoy, they won't come. I think now the opportunity is greater for you to get more material, okay? Because, for example, in days gone by, we use a lot of tin to cut out and make things to put on. Whereas today, you can get actual material from China, from Trinidad, from anywhere, and it can enhance the costume better than when we used material in the past. But because I didn't make, don't forget, one of the main things of Carnival was the mass camp. And people came to the mass camp to help, and we built these costumes at the mass camp. Today, The costumes come in boxes from China and from Trinidad and all these kind of things. There's hardly any mass camp work. You don't go to a mass camp except probably a mass camp that would be building a king and queen of the Bunch costume. They don't build revelers' costumes. Okay? So the craft is losing its sting among the populace, among the masses of the people. You see? There are less people coming to the mass camp to help. Now, they come, they pay, and they put on a costume, and they go away. They move from the cinema, and by the time they get to the shock roundabout, they're tearing pieces out of the costume. It's troubling them. And their movement, they're more concerned about their dancing and the thing than the actual idea of portraying a theme and presenting it to people. One of the things that, as I mentioned before, I mentioned the lengthening of the route, which is an important aspect of the change. But one of the bigger changes is the overseas promotions. The overseas promotions, you get lots of people now from overseas joining the bands. Before, when you played Carnival in St. Lucia, or St. Lucian that was in the bands. Today, you have thousands of people from overseas joining the bands. When you played a band with 400, 500, or 600 people, in those days it was a massive band. Today, a band is 1,900 people. Okay, and these are overseas people who are coming in. It enhances the tourism product, and it brings more spending power to the country. So these are the advantages today that are, around the carnival. But when the band played Papillon Splendor, which is the name of the band, and Papillon is the butterfly, and every reveler had a big pair of wings on their back, I think too. So it lengthened the band very much. And whereas the band coming down Bridge Street, the back of the band was still on Bridge Street. So that was a very magnificent sight for me. Plus, we had our own show at the Geese Banana Shed, where people paid to come to the show. And at that show, we selected individuals as the best reveler of the year and these sort of things, you see. And these were very telling moments for me. I felt very proud to have been able to organize these events and the amount of people that were supporting it. One of the elements I wish that we had at that time was the promotional aspects of Carnival. You see, because through that it has encouraged lots of people to come to St. Lucia to play Mass, which didn't happen in the past. Mass was strictly for St. Lucians in the past. I think keeping everybody in their sections, and when I played Mass, I didn't have to worry. The people in the section wouldn't allow anybody else to come in the section, because over and above that, I had a prize for the best section, which I gave to the best section in the band. So they didn't allow anybody to come into their section, and that is an element that is missing today. Another thing that's important is that we have different sizes of bands today. We have bands that have up to 1,900 people, and we have bands that have less than 200 people. And I think it's time we organize to give the prize for Band of the Year for big bands and small bands. Okay? Because it's unfair if a band with 200 people get Band of the Year to a band that have 1,900 people with all the colors and all the things. So it is important that we move it along those lines. Yeah, these people came up to watch Carnival, but also there was always a sort of Carnival in the districts, more or less queen shows. Okay, they used to have queen shows there in Suzel and things, but supported by Catholic people also. You know, a lot of Catholic people went down to these shows and supported these shows, and they were very successful. It is very difficult as I watch the changing times. You see, more and more revelers are not really interested in the costume. More and more revelers are interested in how much they can dance and wine and have a good time on the road. All right? That is why, for example, by the time they get to the shock roundabout, they're throwing pieces of their costumes away. Okay? So as to preserve the overall effect of that, we must reinvent the wheel. We must reinvent the wheel. We must be able to tell people, whether through lectures or what is the true meaning of Carnival. Now, for example, in the past, Carnival was in February. And the whole idea, there was a heavy religious intonation to Carnival. You jump Carnival on Monday and Tuesday, and Wednesday you went for your ashes. Today, Carnival is in July, there are no ashes. So you jump Carnival thinking that is only a fete for 2 days, and that's the end of it. So the whole idea of the past, with the 40 days of Lent and all this thing, is out of the window. How do we bring that back? How do we can't bring it back, because the dates are different now, okay? Because we're talking about July as opposed to February. But the responsibility is very heavy on band leaders. Band leaders have got to be able to control the band, that people follow instructions, and that you have good lieutenants, like good section leaders, who will manage the sections and keep people, in check. Today, people haven't got a deep appreciation for Carnival. They don't really understand what it is all about. They figure it is an opportunity to just jump on the road and wine and have a good time. But it is more than that. It is an expression of our cultural ability, and because of that, we must endeavor to keep up to the standards, and don't low-rate it, don't bring it down, don't destroy it. That the people must be told, especially by the band leaders, because the band leaders are the ones who are bringing people into the band. They must be able to instruct them, they must be able to advise them, and to tell them it's not strictly a wine and dine thing. There is art and culture and history that must be preserved.
Feel the vibes, embody the spirit. Lucian Carnival, nothing sweeter than that.